I start with this one?
I don't know if it's gonna work.
Should I just record it and then post it?
Oh, it says we have a viewer now.
If you're watching this, can you comment so we know it's working?
We're having technical difficulties.
Hello? I still don't have a notification.
I mean, if it says we have a viewer, that's good. I just wonder if our Wi-Fi is not being great. Oh, we lost it.
Can you see it, Garrett?
Oh, Diane said hello.
You can see us? Okay.
So I think we're good.
So do we start over?
Yeah.
Okay, if we lose you, we will troubleshoot again. Think we're good?
Yeah. Yeah, we should be.
Okay, welcome to Book Bites with Maggie. I'm the Youth Services Assistant here at Napanee Public Library. Joining me as our guest host today in episode 20 of season 3 is Michaela Lehman. She is our media technician. That's not right.
Communication specialist. She gets it wrong
every
time.
single
How
time.
many times have I been on this? And
Yeah,
you still
every
never-
time.
never
I just
get it.
fumble it. Okay,
That's okay.
so she makes us look good on social media, even troubleshoots when we're having issues like we are today. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about death and dying. And a lot of our books, they're not super dark. A lot of them have some humor. So we'll jump back and forth between what titles we picked from our collection. If there's any of them that pique your interest, let us know in the comments, and we'd be happy to set them aside for you to pick up at your convenience. We'll also mention if they come in a different format. So if you're not local and you're watching us and you'd be interested in some of the titles, check with your local library, or you can also probably find most of them on Audible, Kindle, different things like that. And we will get jumping into our topic. We're live now, we're good?
Yeah,
we're good. Okay, so the first book that I have is one that I grabbed from our teen section. This is Murder for the Modern Girl by Kendall Culper, and it takes place in Chicago in the 1920s. As I was reading this book, it had a very Gatsby feel to it, and a lot of the people that I was reading reviews on this book also mentioned that it has kitten heels and it has glamour, and it talks about like how they dressed in the context of the story. Our main character's name is Ruby. She is very stealthy, and as she kind of goes to all these different parties and things like that, she has her ear to the ground, and she is going to be our female vigilante. She becomes the angel in town, and she takes care of the scum of the earth. And so when she hears about a guy who's not treating his family correctly, when she hears about somebody who got away with murder, she quietly and discreetly kills them.
Takes them out.
But like, it's not like gory at all. So Ruby is sitting here, she's doing her thing, and somebody starts to pick up on what is happening. His name is Guy. He works in the morgue. His goal in life is to become alongside a scientist who is studying him. He is a shapeshifter. He has written a book on shapeshifting, and Guy believes that if he can get into the eye of this scientist, he's going to help him survive this world. So it's a little bit fantasy, vigilante, crime, but all focused around death. So this one was very, very interesting to me. We do have it available as a book, and I think as an e-audio book on Hoopla, I think. Maybe Libby. We'll have to double check on that for you. So, there you go. The 20s. What season is your book from?
Okay, so my first book is, I think it's set like in the same time as now. So
Modern.
yeah, just a modern day, almost retelling of And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. So this is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. She is one of my go-to authors. She writes a lot of psychological thrillers, and that's what this one is. So, and this is also a Reese's book club pick, so that means it's a good one most of the time. So, the guest list is a psychological thriller set at a wedding in Ireland. So it's a little different because it's...
Are they Americans in Ireland? They're Irish.
It's
Okay.
I don't know if they're Irish or
It's
if
a
they're
destination
just
wedding?
like English, but it's like set in the UK, so all the people are from the UK. But it is a destination wedding on a island in Ireland, and it goes through the life of all of these different characters. So it kind of switches back and forth between the bride, the groom, a bridesmaids, the best man, the caretaker of the venue, a friend from their past, and different things like that. So it also switches time. So when you're reading it, one chapter will be like before the wedding, and then the next chapter is like after the wedding, during the reception, where they find a dead body or like somebody has died. So the whole book is kind of a whodidit murder mystery, and they're trying to find out who killed this person. And if I'm remembering correctly, like one of the weird parts is you don't even actually know who is dead.
So they're always talking in pronouns?
No, like they're talking about like going to find this body, and then they find the body, and then it's like, because it's switching back and forth, you don't actually get to it until like right at the end. So about the same time you find out who's dead, you find out who killed them too. But the whole time you're trying to think about like, okay, but who died?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to think, okay, but who killed them? Like all in the same book, and it switches back and forth. So it's really fun. It was a good read. Lucy Foley is a great author who writes a lot of psychological thrillers. So a lot of her books are going to be kind of like this. And this one is probably one of her most popular. We have it as a book here at the library. We have the e-audiobook and we have the e-book.
And it's a standalone, not part of a series.
Yeah, all of her books are standalone, so I recommend any of them, but the guest list is a good one.
It's a good one. So my book is not new. This one's from about 20 years ago. Stiff, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach is a nonfiction book that talks about cadavers. So it's a, you're scrunching up your nose. It fits our theme of death. So it talks specifically about what happens to our bodies after they die. You could be buried, you could be cremated, but this book goes into so much more. Now, with it being about 20 years old, it only barely touches on becoming a plant. Like, it talks about like having your body frozen, all these different types of things. But our main author, she's not just sitting at a desk, staying clean and writing on a computer. She's stomping through the woods of
Body
farms, yeah. And like, so she is getting the smells, has the nasty shoes, she is totally engrossed in her topic. And I think that's what makes her a great storyteller, is you're learning, but there's so much humor to it that it does not feel grotesque at all. Like, she'll be talking about bunions and dead bodies, but you're laughing. And
It's almost like Dirty Jobs.
yes,
With
that
death.
is the perfect way of thinking about it. It is so disgusting, but you have to find the humor. She does a great job of telling that. Now, when we went to go pull the book, we realized how outdated it was, so we bought a new copy. This one was just added to our collection, and lo and behold, something that we have dreamed about was an updated epilogue, and it has been included. So I've got to read the end chapter here before I put it back on the shelf. But some of the things that she alludes to, again, it's 20 plus years old, have now come to fruition, and things that could actually happen in science, and how much the digital technology of the last 20 years has changed many of the chapters, and like going through dissection classes in school and things like that she touches base on. All that stuff has changed. So I'm hoping that this updated epilogue will bring it more up to date and in context. So we will have to see. Mary Roach is a very, very prolific nonfiction author. So she has written Fuzz. She has written, oh, what are some of the other ones? I'm totally drawing a blank. She picks topics that are not normal reading material, and this is probably her most popular one. So Stiff comes in a book, an ebook, and an e-audio book. Again, something you're not going to normally pick up, but I promise it will be worth it.
My turn again?
Sure.
Okay, so my next book, I read this for book club. So I'm in the Napney book club, and we read this one. I'm gonna level with you.
You didn't love it?
It's not a good book.
That's okay. Not every book has to be a
Yeah,
good book.
but I mean, it's nice to talk about books that we didn't like. Riley Sager is a pretty popular author. He writes a lot of kind of similar to Lucy Foley, psychological thrillers, murder mysteries. One of his most popular books is Final Girls, I think. Yeah, Final Girls. This one is Survive the Night. It's set in the 90s, early 90s, and there is a campus killer.
So it's a college?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no. Okay, so it starts at a college with a college student. I don't even remember her name. I literally listened to this book at like 1.75 speed.
Just to get done with
Just to
it.
get it done with for book club. But it starts out at a college with a student, and her best friend was murdered by the campus killer. And she has a condition where she sees things as like a movie in her mind.
Okay.
And so sometimes she doesn't know what's real and what's not. And so she was with the best friend when she met the campus killer. So she saw the killer, but then a movie started happening in her mind, so she didn't actually know who it was.
So like a photographic memory, but not.
Yeah, but it's not really. It's like she has episodes where
So
she just
what
goes
is that?
into
What is
her
that
own
called?
mind.
Dissociative syndrome. Is that?
It was
Oh
very
gosh, that's
strange
gonna bother me.
in the book, and like sometimes throughout the book, like she would have these episodes, so you don't even like really know what's happening and what's real and what's not. Which
Is
I
she
guess
the killer?
Okay, that's what I thought. So I don't want to give too much away, because even though I didn't love this book and I thought I was like, okay, I know what happens, I didn't correctly guess the ending. So it still took me by surprise. Okay, so what happens is she
Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Well, no, like the whole story of this book is that she is leaving college. She doesn't want to be at college anymore. The campus killer ruined it. Makes sense. So she goes to a ride share board and gets a ride to home from this mysterious stranger that she's never met. Like, who does that when there's a serial killer? And she can't ride home with her boyfriend because he wouldn't be available until the weekend. So this whole time, this whole book, she is in the car going home to like her Ohio, I think it is, with this stranger. And then things don't start adding up, and like stories are changing. And then they go to a diner and there's more people, and it's like, it keeps adding all these things, which made it like not a great read for me, but for some people they might really enjoy it. But it's a weird one, but
did it make for a great discussion?
No.
Oh.
I think at book club we were all like, oh, I didn't like it, and then we talked about other books.
Okay.
Which is awful, but
No.
it's very well written. Riley Sager is a really good author. I just don't think this was the book for us. So we have it as an ebook, as an e-audiobook. I listened to the audiobook, which I think did make it a little bit better. But if you're into like serial killer mysteries, this would be a good one. Just know that there is a lot that goes into it, and it's kind of confusing. So, Survive the Night by Riley Sager.
There you go. My next book is currently checked out. Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz is another teen book. This is a gothic tale of mystery and romance about a willful female surgeon who, because she's in Edinburgh in 1817, is very frowned upon. She's basically the wrong gender. Nobody wants her to study to become a surgeon. She'd rather be a surgeon than be married into a wealthy family, and her family disagrees with that, and they don't want her to be a surgeon either. Basically, it becomes a story of survival of the fittest. So in order for her to study, she sneaks into, I kind of like picture Mulan. She like pictures, or like joins this, all I can think of is webinar, and that is totally the wrong word. She joins like the Society of Surgeons to get some elite training. They find out she's a woman. She gets thrown out of class and begs and pleads to, like, please teach me what you know. I want to become a surgeon. Again, because she's a female, not okay. And she is kind of thrown to the wolves, and he says, I will only take you on if you can pass my exams without any formal training. And so she becomes like immersed, even more so than her desire to learn and study the human body. She like takes over a portion of her house and is by candlelight reading and absorbing all the knowledge she can from books before she realizes this isn't enough. This isn't going to help me succeed in what my dreams are. And so she goes and she visits somebody called a resurrection man. The resurrection man then starts digging up bodies. They keep their ear to the ground. I feel like I just said that to some other book. Is always listening to the gossip, finds out who's dying and who's dead, follows them to the graveyard, and shortly after they are placed underground, the resurrection men pull the bodies out of the ground and they sell them to the highest bidder. She is very wealthy, she has the means and the money, and she starts buying dead bodies so that she can learn from these cadavers. It is a gothic love story, I promise, but it's just interesting to watch her fight for what she wants. And then the resurrection man, he's selling these bodies for all of his own reasons as well. So it's a dual POV where you're getting both of their perspectives, why he's digging them up, what his goal in this whole endeavor is, and you're also following and rooting for this girl who's opening up dead bodies. It sounds so morbid, and it kind of is, but you're also rooting for her. I'm super excited to read this one again before early next year, because it's going to be a duology, which I didn't know was going to happen. Immortality, a love story, is going to be coming out in February. So Dana Schwartz has a very popular podcast. She is a fantastic storyteller, and I cannot wait to see her next book come through. Let's see, we have Anatomy, a Love Story as a book and an ebook here in our Nappanee Public Library collection. Again, that's Anatomy by Dana Schwartz. Did that convince you to read it? I made my cousin buy it on Audible because she doesn't have a library in her town. I don't know if she's read it yet, but I'll keep badgering her because it's very unique in how it is told.
And it was teen?
It's teen, yeah.
Okay.
Although she's like 18, 19, so it could be like emerging
College
adult.
student, younger adult, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so speaking of love stories, I can never not come on Book Bites and not bring a rom-com.
That's
so
okay.
My next book is The Dead Romantics, which is a romantic comedy. It is by Ashley Poston. If you noticed, I'm holding up all these because all of the books that I am recommending are checked out, or we only have them as an ebook or something. I also read this one for book club like 2 months ago. But I asked book club after reading this one, which was not good, if we could do something like light and fun, and so we came up with The Dead Romantics. It is, like I said, a romantic comedy. The main character is like the ghost whisperer. So she sees ghosts. She lives in New York City at the time, but then something pretty tragic happens and she has to move home, and her parents own a funeral home. So she goes back to like this quirky little small town with all these like little small town characters, and somebody that she knew in New York shows up in her small town as a ghost. So
Was he dead in New York? Or
No.
she dead in New York?
So before she left New York, she met this guy and they liked each other and they shared like a passionate kiss, and then she had to leave. And
Was he
then-
alive when she kissed him?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he shows up.
That is a valid question.
Then he shows up as a ghost. But he's not like a normal ghost. Like sometimes he's there and then sometimes he just vanishes. So if you're catching my drift, it's a little predictable. And it's like every rom-com has a somewhat happy ending, so
It's a Good Morning America book.
yeah.
There's not more to it than that. That feels like
Well,
kind of
there is a lot of like things that go on in this little small town and the tragic reason why she had to go back to the small town and stuff like that. So the love interest is a ghost for most of the book, which is not like...
Well, wait, that alludes to him being not a ghost the entire book. You can't have a ghost if you're still alive.
Well, yeah, like, they can't, like, touch or anything when he's ghosty, so...
I'm intrigued.
I mean, it gives it away, but it was a cute book. It's so funny. It was I told book club it was kind of like a good introduction to somebody that uses pronouns.
Okay.
If you've never read anything like that, it did like, so it's not the main character, but there is a they them character in the book, and it literally like it kind of skates by it that you wouldn't even notice, which I thought was a nice introduction to reading something like that, because it didn't make it as confusing as I thought it would be. So there is, and I mean, like I said, it's not a main character, so it just uses the pronouns in a nice way, which was easy to follow. But the main characters have this whole little like story that they go on and do all these things, and it was cute, it was funny, small town vibes, spooky season vibes, so it's a good one for October, and it's like a paranormal type of thing.
Okay. And you said we have it available as an ebook?
We have it as an ebook. Yep.
Nice. My next book is From Scratch, a memoir on love, Sicily, and finding home by Tembi Locke. Tembi is on one of the major news networks, or used to be. I can't remember which one. Do you remember? So this is the story of how she met her husband. Tembi is an African American who lives in New York City. She meets Sorrow, who is a Sicilian man. His family pretty much does away with him when they form a relationship and get married, because they're not fond of him being in a multiracial family. So it's an interesting story about how they create their own family in New York City. It is a love story, but it's also a very, very sad story. So in this book, Sorrow actually ends up dying after they have adopted their daughter, Zoella. And so for the most part of this story, Tembi becomes a caretaker to him, and then it is a story of after he passes away. I feel like I gave away a huge part of the story, but you're going to figure it out really early on that he dies. So as you're following through on this memoir, you're going to see more about how Tembi and Zoella are dealing with all the stages of grief. They cannot really enter that world where they need to just take care of themselves and really hunker down and start mourning the loss of their husband and father until they leave New York City. So they go back to Sicily, and she actually starts finding comfort in the home of her mother-in-law, and they create a bond that was not there when Sorrow was still alive. But through food, through the kitchen, through learning each other's languages and idiosyncrasies, and then going back and forth in time when Sorrow was still alive and sharing food through every portion of this story, you go through the whole scape of their time together, from when they were dating, when they were engaged, after they got married, and each season of their lives is told through recipes, which I thought was kind of uniquely done. You get to really experience all of the senses, because you start smelling the food that they're talking about, because it is so well described. And at the very back of the book, there's even a whole bunch of recipes that when I brought this back, I sat at the back office and started photocopying them, and I still have some of them in my recipe box at home.
Have you made any of them?
This one that I can't pronounce, how do you say it? Yeah, me neither. It's an eggplant dish. It was really good.
Melanzane?
Sure. Melzane a la Parma.
Oh, there's a whole. I was stuck on the first word. Melanzane alla Parmigiana.
I don't even know if you're wrong. I don't even know if you're wrong. But there you go. And it's an all-encompassing book. And it takes death and it treats it like
an old friend.
Yeah. And I didn't laugh a whole lot reading this one, but it did do a really good job of describing emotions. So From Scratch is probably going to be making more headlines pretty soon. It is new to Netflix as a mini-series. So the book is a memoir that they've then turned into, what's a mini-series? Like a TV show? A movie? Like episodes of something. Yeah. So they've turned it into film. So if a book is not your go-to, we do have it available as an ebook and e-audiobook, or you could watch it on Netflix. So there you go. That's From Scratch by Tembi Locke.
Did you watch that already?
I have not. I actually thought it was coming out, so that's why I Googled it right before we went live and realized it's already out. So that's how bad I am at keeping up on my TV shows. The next one is another book that I read a couple of years ago. This is The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter by, how do you say that? By Margareta Magnusson.
Yeah,
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, come here real quick.
Okay.
Yes, this is Marloes. She's going to join me and pronounce these words for me.
I don't know what language is it. Oh, gee, that's not Dutch.
That's not Dutch.
No, that's not.
Okay.
It's probably Swedish.
Dos
It says in
Suntag-
Sweden.
Oh, there you go, in Sweden. You should know this. Dos Suntag du Sunnig. Okay, so anyway, it means death cleaning in Swedish. And it's actually this entire concept of taking care and cleaning out your home when you get to an advanced age. This book, you would think it's just going to be like an instruction manual, and it kind of is, but it is so funny. And I don't know if it's because of the way that it is written or if I was just in a wonky mood when I read it, but it literally talks about a lady who's like going through her possessions and she's like, oh, this is an embarrassing part of my everyday life. I don't want my family to find it. And so she gets rid of it before she dies because she doesn't want somebody to find it in her home. You know what I mean? Like, do you have anything embarrassing in your house? Nothing?
My Christmas box collection, maybe.
But everybody knows you collect Christmas boxes. Okay, so think about
stuff.
Maybe a piece of clothing that you're like, I cannot believe that I own this piece of clothing from like 45 years ago and I'm still hanging on to it. People are gonna think I'm weird that I have it. And so she talks about getting rid of it.
So it's like a funny Marie Kondo before you die.
Yes, absolutely. Paring down. It talks about boxing things up because if you don't get rid of it, your family's going to have to, and it could shape the way that they think about you when they go through your mess.
Yeah, you find
You
some
find things and there you go.
When
Skeletons.
you clean up
You're
after,
learning more about people in a way that you might not want to know about their bedroom habits or their hygiene habits or their whatever. And it's a super short book, but it really made me laugh. And there's some pictures too.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, it's super cute. My third death cleaning. So she kept living long after her first and second. So she kept paring down her stuff.
So it's from the perspective of the person before they die. I
Yes.
thought maybe it was from the perspective of
Somebody going
the
through.
people after you
No.
die.
So,
I see.
so in Sweden and maybe other places in the world, I don't remember. She talks about what it's like to start going through the process of death cleaning.
I see.
So, and then it would be even different if you were like married or living with a significant other and you were cleaning out for you and them.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was insightful. Okay. That was funny. What one do you have?
Mine is not funny.
Not funny?
So apparently my book club likes to read a lot of books about people dying. And I don't want to, the topic of our book bites today gives a lot of these books away because people die. But this is Kelly Rimmer. something. Kelly Reimer, Before I Let You Go. There is some trigger warnings for this book that I will get into before I talk about it. There is sexual assault that happens in this book. There is drug addiction that happens in this book. Abandoned children, like hospital type things. So it's a really heavy read. We read it for book club, and it was kind of tough for me to read. It's about a set of sisters that grew up in a religious environment after one of their parents dies. So their dad dies, and then they are with their mom, who marries into almost like the Mormon church. So things pretty drastically changed, and they get out of that lifestyle, and then they start living their separate lives. It's told from the perspective of the main sister, the oldest sister, who gets out first and builds this whole life for herself. She is a successful doctor. She is getting married to another successful doctor. But the whole time she is trying to live her adult life, her other sister keeps coming back, needing help. She's always getting into trouble.
Is she still in the church?
No. So
they both got out.
So she gets the younger sister out after she's kind of set herself up. And then throughout the book, you start getting these intros of the younger sister writing in some kind of diary. So it's a little tricky to explain, but she finally the younger sister calls the older sister one day, and she's like, I need help this time for real. And come to find out, the younger sister is pregnant and struggling with addiction. So she is she's going through withdrawal the same time that she's going through
sickness,
pregnancy, and then she eventually has the baby. Like, where does this baby go? And the older sister is like, well, I have to take it. So the main part of the book is the younger sister going to rehab, the older sister taking care of the younger sister's baby. And it's strenuous on her upcoming marriage. It makes things a little bit harder with the mom, who had no idea that her youngest daughter was even pregnant. And then you find things out about their life when they were children, and things that happened, and what might have led to the addiction issues, and why they have such a strained relationship. So there is a pretty significant scene that I wish I would have known about before I read it, because one of the sisters dies. Yeah. And the other sister finds her sister dead.
Ooh,
and so it was really hard to read, especially I have a lot of sisters, so it was a tough one, but I'm glad I read it, because now I know more about like struggles with addiction and things like that. So it is fiction, but it does also teach you a lot of things, and it just gives you like those sisterly vibes, like you just want to hug your sisters a little tighter. I think I took like pictures of some of the quotes and stuff and sent it to my own sisters. So it was heartwarming at times. It was really hard to read at other times, but it's a really well written book, and it's not my favorite, but I would recommend it. So
what other formats do we have that one in?
we have it as an e-audiobook and an ebook.
Very good. And that's Before I Let You Go.
Yep.
Okay. The last one that I have to share with you today is It's Your Funeral, Plan the Celebration of a Lifetime Before It's Too Late by Kathy Benjamin. This one, it is a library book, but if you owned it, it's like a workbook. So like there's huge sections that after you read about something and planning your own funeral, then you can actually like fill it out. Now, if you checked out the library book, we'd ask you to make photocopies. Please do not plan your wedding or your wedding. Don't plan your funeral and leave it in the pages of our book. Well, okay, I say wedding because I know something that I wanted to say about this book is it talks about the amount of money that you spend on a wedding is very similar to the amount of money that is going to be invested in your funeral. Now, there's a huge chapter in here that talks about let me go back a little bit. Okay, so each chapter talks about different portions of your funeral. Everybody's been to funerals. A lot of them follow the same kind of like, this is what you do first, this is what you do second, blah, 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 blah. Now, it could change if you're in different religions, if you follow no denomination at all, but there's a whole chapter in here about what would it be like if you planned a funeral that you also planned to attend. So you're putting all this money into it, you're bringing all of your relatives together like a family reunion. Wouldn't that be something you want to go to?
I mean, technically you're there.
But like, it talks about actually like, so say you have a terminal diagnosis, planning a funeral and having it when you're still alive. So then you get to hear all the good things people talk about. No? It kind of convinced me. It really did. So like, especially like, say you are somebody who like in STIF, you're going to donate your body to science, or you are going to be an organ donor, or you are planning on, what is that word when you freeze your body?
Cryogenic.
Cryogenic. So if you're going to be frozen, if you are going to, like, if your body is not casket worthy, you're laughing. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
people have this form of grief that is very visual. So like, there's closure involved in going to a visitation and going to a funeral. And if your health is ailing, or if you know that there's not going to be a body to grieve over, you can start the process and plan a funeral that you also plan to attend. I don't know, like, it just made me think differently, I thought. So what if you want to be like eco-friendly? It talks about more of the modern ways of disposing of your body, and you can't just be thrown into the ocean, but like,
It's illegal.
it's illegal.
Yeah.
You can't just be like spread around. You can't, there's so many things you can't do. You can't like have your ashes spread wherever you want. There's so many things that you can't do, but there's so many things that you can as well. And this book kind of made me go, huh, I never thought of this, or I never thought of that.
I see the benefit of like you doing the work, and so your family, doesn't have to guess.
Yes.
So,
So
like-
like it talks about like people sometimes will wait 7 to 10 days after the death for whatever reason to have a funeral so the family can come in and all these different things. But planning a funeral for a loved person when you're already grieving so hard, and it's like, it's not something you want to be thinking about. So planning ahead, whether or not you plan on being there, planning ahead for somebody is super beneficial. You're not leaving that to be something that your family has to do. The other thing that it talks about in this book is the concept of paying for your funeral now. So no matter what you pay now, even if there's inflation, it's covered when you do die. So like, say you're in your 30s, you could pay for your funeral, pay for your casket at today's price, and you're covered, assuming that your funeral home is still around. But like, you're covered then when you get to that point. Does that make sense? Yeah. Buying your plots now, buying all these things now and not worrying about it later is something to think about. So, and that's part of death and dying that we don't like to talk about, but this one kind of made it fun. I mean, it's a skeleton with a party hat and champagne. So it was super fun. This we have available again as a book. If you're going to check out our library book, just make photocopies of the workbook section so you're not writing in it. We also have it available as an e-audiobook if you would like to listen while you're out and about and shopping for groceries or for Christmas and you want to plan your funeral
while you're shopping for groceries.
You never
Oh,
know.
goodness.
You know. You don't know what people are listening to in their earbuds. Okay, one last book.
This book is not a book that I would listen to while you are shopping for groceries. But at the same time I would, because I regret listening to it when I was home alone in my house. This is The Shining by Stephen King. This is not a new book. I think it was published the year I was born, to be honest. I don't know when. Where does it say? Oh,
77.
It's way older than me.
1977.
It was published in 77, but it is still around because it's literally a masterpiece. It is the scariest, creepiest, grossest book that I've ever read. But I loved it. I am a Stephen King fan. I've not read everything by him, but The Shining is a part. There is 2 books, so it's technically a duology. Dr. Sleep is the second one. But it's also a movie. The movie's not good. Read the book. The Shining by Stephen King is about Jack Torrance and his family, and they move into this hotel, which is called the Overlook, and the hotel is haunted. Well, kind of. Like, it's haunted, but at the same time, the main character, who is a young boy, has what they call the shine. So he can sense things that are a little different and interact with things like that. But really bad things start happening while they are there, shut in for the winter, kind of like upkeeping the place. There is a very graphic scene about a dead woman in a clawfoot bathtub. And my house used to have one of those.
You said used to, you got rid of it.
It's not a coincidence that we don't have one anymore. No, just kidding. But it was so creepy, and it's gory, and it's like things that...
Is the death the overlying theme?
Well, it's like ghosty.
Okay.
So people aren't like dropping dead, like actual people aren't just like dying, but like every different part of this hotel is haunted by like awful things that had happened in it. So you get like the ghosty feel, and it's perfect for Halloween because it's like so spooky and scary. And some parts of the book were like awful to read. Like I just didn't want to read it anymore. But it's so gripping that you just have to read it.
You have to know what
So
happens.
yeah.
What other formats do we have that one in?
We have it as a book. We have it as everything. A book, an ebook, an e-audiobook. We have the movie, and I mean, you can watch the movie almost anywhere. So
There we go.
yeah, that's Stephen King.
So our entire topic today was all about death. Book Bites will be back with 2 episodes in what comes after October, November, with 2 new episodes. Again, we'll be here in December with 2 new episodes, and then starting in January, Book Bites with Maggie is going to move to a podcast platform. We are going to drop it back to 1 episode a month, and it'll be super exciting to have guest hosts. Instead of us standing here and talking with our hands and holding up covers, will be available on any platform that you choose to listen to podcasts on. So that'll be exciting stuff for us to come, and be looking forward to back in January.
And if you want to be a guest host on the podcast ever, or just book bites,
reach out to us, let us know. And in the comments, let us know if any of these books pique your interest. We'll be happy to set them aside for you. And we'll put a full list of all the titles that we mentioned today in there as well. If there's other books that you thought had a death theme that were not mentioned, leave them in the comments. That would be helpful to other people who have been watching our episode today. We're live right now on Facebook, but this episode will be dropped into YouTube in the next couple of days, so you can watch it later as well. Anything else?
No.
Okay. So long for now. We'll see you next time.